Hi, my name is Cynthia Ciupeiu. Looking at me, I'm just a regular European Latina teenage girl, but there's a lot about me and my family's past that no one would have ever known. During my genealogy research, going into my father's side was a dead end, but after gathering much information on my mother's side, I was able to learn so much about my relatives and my Colombian culture. My grandfather and mother were born and grew up in Medellin, Colombia, and my great-grandparents were born and grew up in Antes, Colombia. What enhanced my curiosity on these cities is that my great-grandparents passed away, so I didn't have any primary resources to ask any questions that clouded my brain. How was it like living in the cities that you have lived in? What are the similarities and differences between them? The towns of Medellin and Antes had my interests and are directly related to my family, so let's take a deeper dive into them. Andes and Medellin are two completely different towns with different cultures, transportations, and nature. Andes, my great-grandparents' hometown, is known for having the longest mountain range in the world, called the Colombian Massif. The attractions in Andes consist of all mountain ranges and its many riverways, as well as indigenous history. Andes has more traditional and standard establishments. The land, though, is extremely difficult to manage. Parts of the mountain ranges are too cold or do not have enough water to grow anything. Transportation is rocky and requires a lot of effort to be able to get around, especially without any sort of automobile. Andes has an intense need for farmers to sustain and keep its agriculture alive and healthy. After researching into this, you may figure that Medellin shares similarities and isn't too far away from being the same as Andes, but never underestimate. These two towns have outstanding differences. When in the local area, everything is walking distance and people here are more inclusive and united. Passing the streets, you can see people riding motorcycles, locking hands to pray with one another, and buying groceries outside and in. Medellin has a lot of different activities daily that the community collaborates on to keep the community young and a place to enjoy. Festivals like Fiera de las Flores are celebrated annually with Sileteros, which is a tradition to look back on and commemorate the end of slavery in Colombia. This city is youthful and engaging as it shares a similar perspective with Andes that they still use some of their ancestors' traditions. From this, I realized that we are just looking at everything above a surface level. In the interview with my grandfather, he mentioned a very important part of my family's history. The 100-Day War, also known as the Gran Colombo-Peruvian War Colombia had against Peru, had affected my great-grandparents. This war alone consisted of the countries Colombia, Venezuela, Panama, and Ecuador, all against the Republic of Peru. What had created this fight were disagreements between the governments and territorial claims. All the countries once being under the rule of the liberator Simon Bolivar, I can assume that the conditions the people had to live through were unjust and awfully unfair. After losing much territory, the Peruvian society was still under the dictatorship of Bolivar. Colombia won back the land they patriotically fought for. Happy after winning the war, my family stayed in Colombia and continued to walk on their beautiful land. If the country is so beautiful though, why leave? I had asked my mother. She went on by saying there are many more opportunities here in the States, and she wanted to live under much better conditions than the ones that she was exposed to. Not only that, but also for her own kids. She'd much rather us live in a safer environment than she had to go through. At 15 years old, my mother moved into America. The cultures, she had explained to me, are much different. There are many traditions there with the community that relate to religion, especially that we don't practice in the United States. For example, here's a picture of my grandfather's balcony during the week of Easter. The people gathering around came from all towns in Colombia, uniting as one, worshiping God and His blessings. She's noticed that many people here take things for granted, and in other places, they're taken with all their heart. Foods are much different too. Everything in Colombia is basically natural, whereas many things here are processed in the States. With all these differences, there are common grounds like the values of families and education. With all the opportunities she was given as an immigrant and young girl, she would never take it back for the world. And that sums up the history of why I'm here today. I'm very grateful for everything I have been given and the culture and practices that have stuck with me from being exposed to being my mother's daughter. I thank her, my father, and my entire family for what they've given me. Thank you.